This is Including You, the new series from Lead at Any Level. Including You features stories from chief diversity officers and other executives who are creating inclusive cultures in their organizations. Our goal is to show what's working in companies just like yours, to give you the tools you need to keep pushing for progress in your own workplace. We want to create belonging and opportunity for everyone, including you. And now here's your host, Amy C. Waninger.
Welcome back to Including You. I'm your host, Amy C. Waninger, the Inclusion Catalyst. My guest today is Mariam Shahab. She is the founder of Chatterbox Consulting, an inclusive marketing consultancy that provides full spectrum of marketing services for brands who can't keep quiet. Chatterbox Consulting is based in Austin, Texas. Mariam, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Amy.
I am so excited to talk to you because marketing is everywhere. All the time. We cannot escape it, even if we try. Inclusive marketing, though, is a little bit harder to find. And so I'm curious, what is so important to your clients about inclusive marketing? Why does this matter to them?
Great question. Thanks, Amy. So for me, my experience in marketing and communications really has been wide in terms of the different industries, in terms of the different issue areas. I come to this work having worked with Fortune 500 companies as well as advocacy organizations. And what that means at the spectrum or intersections of tech, CPG, retail, advocacy organizations focused on reproductive justice, immigration rights, mental health, all these seemingly disparate things. At the center of it all is people. And really this idea of inclusive marketing comes to how do we create spaces for brands and organizations to intentionally reach, uplift, celebrate, and also sell to customers that are diverse in many different ways of thinking about the word diversity. Sure, gender and race are always top of mind, but also when we think of things like accessibility for the disability community, when we look at things from particular food needs for different groups or healthcare needs, as well as, of course, age and other ways of slicing audiences in a way to serve them so they feel like they belong with the brand and not are just being sold to or a one-way interaction. And what I've found is it really is both B2B or business to business and B2C brands that can benefit from putting a lens of inclusive marketing intentionally at the center of their marketing strategy. But I think the most important thing of doing it right is looking inside the organization first, making sure that the values of the organization and how they treat employees has to be in place first before you can do external inclusive marketing, making sure that you aren't just selling to or creating a campaign for a moment in time like Black History Month or like Ramadan to meet the Muslim audience until you know how you're treating those employees intentionally, inclusively, and creating spaces for them internally. And then we can talk about how you are reaching them externally.
We have seen so many examples of brands making unforced errors in this space. They create a product or a campaign that is counter to what they say they're trying to do. It's reductive. It engages in stereotypes. These examples are all over the place. And it's really hard, I would think, to recover from this. Baking it in, not just to the approach to marketing, but actually having the people internally to help advise and direct and lead these initiatives is the key to not falling on your face when you go to market, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. The term I use is cultural competency or cultural intelligence. And that truly comes from having the right people. Oftentimes when brands fall on their face, if you will, the question is asked online, who was in the room? How could they have let this happen? Don't these organizations have big marketing teams? How did no one see this faux pas, this stereotype that was being showcased in their marketing efforts? And it all comes down to cultural competency of the organization as a whole, and then certainly the marketing teams as well. And what that really means is just because you may have folks of different identities, even on the marketing team, they may not have the understanding of how to apply their lived experiences to the work. And they also might not want to be showcasing their identity for the sake of how things are showing up in their work. And that's really that idea of your employees and understanding who they are and how they want to contribute to the work beyond, I'd say, their hard skills. One of the things I've worked at two different public relations firms, and at both, I was able to build cultural competency teams as a service offering to clients. And the first time I built this type of a team, it really was identifying folks across the agency who had a mixed bag of different skill sets from a marketing and communications perspective, which was not my focus. My focus was who has self-identified their lived experiences that I can have a very diverse team based on their immigration identity, their socioeconomic upbringing, again, of course, race and gender and ethnicity, their LGBTQ plus identity, to then offer to clients a group of very smart, yes, skilled marketing and communications professionals, but folks who are using that lived identity to find places that are to basically flag those cultural sensitivities so brands don't make those mistakes, and do the opposite of identifying the opportunities so they aren't missed by brands to reach those communities in a really authentic way.
And you've outlined some of the things that you do for your clients. Can you give some examples? Because you've worked on some really high profile projects. You've done some pretty amazing stuff in your career. And I was wondering if you could just make this real for people by talking about, like, what does it look like to have a culturally competent marketing team behind a new product launch or a new service initiative?
Sure, I'd love to share the story of my professional highlight was working with Crayola. Obviously, everyone knows the crayon pack, whether you used it when you were a kid or you may have kids of your own who are using them now. The time was 2019, and they were a client of my previous firms, and they already had a multicultural crayon pack, which had 8 colors in it, and it had been around for decades. And they asked our team, should we think about expanding this? And our short answer was yes. But our long answer was a lot more complicated. And we really were looking at the color nude. Nude is not one shade. And we know, especially the primary users of crayons are children. And children are at this age where they're forming their identity of how others see them and how they see others. So this particular audience is so important to create belonging in a way that shapes their entire future as well, and how others, such as teachers or caregivers, are telling them they should be seen or they should see the world. So what we actually did is we worked with Crayola, my team did, to identify who could help create an inclusive pack of nude skin colors, the tones that are many different shades. Found a makeup artist who really helped formulate the actual products into a 24 pack set of skin colors that actually reflected all of the skin colors of the world. Ended up naming the product in a similar way, Colors of the World crayons, after many debates on what it should be called. And to get there, my team was really thinking from a culturally competent perspective of having conversations with parents, teachers, caregivers. Oftentimes, moms are the decision makers for buying for children products. So specifically moms, but also thinking about all the identities of different households. If there might be a single mom who's purchasing things versus one in a heterosexual or homosexual relationship, as well as biracial families, really understanding the nuances of all the decisions that go into choosing a set of crayons at a district level or at a home level. And what we ended up doing is we ended up launching this product in May 2020, and it was on the United Nations Day for Cultural Diversity and Dialogue and Development. Talk about the longest name ever. But we wanted to find this moment in time. And what ended up happening is if you're following the date that I'm mentioning, it was actually right before George Floyd's murder and the uprise and the focus on Black Lives Matter. And all of a sudden, race became more of a conversation. But we ended up having our product launch, I would say, thankfully, before George Floyd's murder, because we never wanted to feel like we were capitalizing on anything like that, and the product was already in market. When we launched exclusively with Walmart as a retailer, sold out and had so much excitement from, yes, the community of buyers, but also this surround sound effect of celebrities, of people who were perhaps had no children to buy the product for were talking about how it healed their inner child to be able to be seen in this way and how much they wish they had this product and why didn't Crayola come out with it before type of a thing. And we worked with a bunch of influencer families online to identify, to help them have their children draw pictures that actually was the full family drawing for the first time. They could showcase their parents who may have a different skin tone, a brother, a sister, whomever. And it was truly the most fulfilling piece of my career and showcases how culturally competent marketing from the beginning to the product formulation to the actual campaign launch, and then being aware of what's happening in society and responding appropriately, things you can't predict, can really make a difference.
I love this story, and I love that crayon pack so much. I was so excited to buy those for my kids for Christmas, even though two of them were way too old to be coloring with crayons. But you're right, it not only fed an existing need, a gap in the market, it almost created a new market for people who just wanted to be a part of this thing in the moment. And then, sorry about my dog, hold on. Okay, I will edit that part out. That's why the long pause. Hold on. So the impact of a campaign like that is huge, not just for the company that's launching it, but for the community. You talked about celebrities getting involved. You got a lot of bonus traction out of a campaign like that. What kinds of results can folks expect? I would imagine that is an extreme case, one that everybody's heard of. What are the typical results of working with you and your company and engaging in the kinds of inclusive marketing practices and activities that you bring to your clients?
Great question. There's two main answers to this. One is deepening engagement with a particular audience segment. And I chose the word engagement intentionally here. Engagement can look like a repeat customer. It can look like a loyal customer who's going to bring in their community, their friends, their family into buying from or participating in your organization or your brand's products, services, mission, whatever your action might be. It's truly that community building with individuals in a way that goes beyond a one-time transaction. And the other piece of this is, again, it depends on what industry you're in, product, service, or a nonprofit, for example. But truly, it's working through inclusive marketing drives results. It drives sales. It drives that relationship building with that potential customer for a longer time. So it's sales and engagement with audiences that might be untapped for the organization right now, or might be tapped but can actually be deepened in the relationships with the brand. And I think part of it is understanding how the entire marketing landscape is shifting towards being more inclusive from an inclusive marketing lens. For example, the Crayola story that I told, from a PR industry awards perspective, it won in categories that were specific around corporate and social responsibility. But it also won, it was the 2021 PR Week Awards. It won in the category of corporate and social responsibility, but it also won in the category of consumer launch, which had no extra label of DEI or social responsibility to it. It was best in class consumer launch. And truly, that's where we're going. Inclusive marketing is just marketing done right for the future.
I love that. Inclusive marketing is just marketing done right. And with the shift in demographics in consumer markets and the shift in demographics in talent markets, I'm always telling people the corollary to that, although I don't think my words were quite as eloquent as yours, that inclusive leadership is leadership done.
Yes, exactly.
If your leadership isn't inclusive, it's not working. And if your marketing isn't inclusive, it's going to stop working if it hasn't already. My guess is, though, at this moment in time, because I've not seen we haven't seen that tipping point yet where all marketing is now inclusive and it's the outlier that is not. My guess is this is a moment in time where companies can differentiate themselves and their brands by jumping on this now. But if they hesitate, that moment will be lost. Do you agree?
Absolutely. It's a competitive advantage, and really understanding what audiences are not being served by your competitors, direct competitors, or say indirect competitors. It is an opportunity to take their market share by serving the needs of a particular community. There's so many, especially consumer packaged goods or consumer products, that are frankly the same. It's the branding, it's the marketing that is the reason a person purchases one toothpaste over the other, or one deodorant over another. And it truly is, how can you create the feelings between a particular brand and their consumer target audiences? And that's what inclusive marketing is. It's really marketing to the feelings of belonging. And yes, showcasing not just the feelings, but the actions and servicing in a way that really does follow through. But short answer is yes.
Mariam, I hope that so many people that are listening to this are in charge of ad budgets, are in charge of marketing campaigns, are in charge of reaching consumers that are whose needs are not being met in the marketplace today. If they are looking for help, how can they find you?
Sure. Thanks for asking. So with Chatterbox Consulting, I really am focused on my ideal client of changemaker brands, the brands that are bold enough, that are brave enough, that are smart enough and ready to create that business impact and build communities, drive engagement by really authentically celebrating and serving the needs of underrepresented audiences. So the best way to contact me, look up Mariam Shahab on LinkedIn. Hopefully Amy will tag me. And also reach me by email, mariam@chatterbox-consulting.com. My sweet spot really is those industry disruptors that want to think big, look at societal and systemic challenges as actually opportunities, and not to be scared by them, but opportunities for change. And truly, my personal sweet spot is servicing at corporate, consumer marketing, and social impact, how they all come together, and looking at it from a 360 marketing strategy perspective to help businesses succeed.
Fantastic. I will make sure that all of your links are in the show notes at includingyoupodcast.com. And so if folks are driving, don't write it down, just go to the website and you'll be able to find it there. Mariam, thank you so much for sharing your story with us, for sharing your insights and your expertise, and for giving us hope that we will all see ourselves reflected in the marketing of the future.
Thank you for having me.
If you've enjoyed this episode, follow Lead at Any Level on LinkedIn and YouTube. Then join us for Including You video simulcast every Thursday at noon Eastern. Including You can also be enjoyed each week as part of the Living Corporate audio podcast series, available on all major podcast platforms. Learn more at living-corporate.com. Including You is brought to you in part by Lead at Any Level, a boutique training and consulting firm improving employee engagement and retention for companies that promote from within. Lead at Any Level. Leaders can be anywhere and should be everywhere. Learn more at leadatanylevel.com. Lead at Any Level and its logo are registered trademarks of Lead at Any Level LLC. The views and opinions of guests on our show do not necessarily reflect the positions of Lead at Any Level, Living Corporate, or the sponsors of Including You.
That's it for this week's edition of Including You. If you liked this episode, be sure to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to leave us a comment or a review to help others find us as well. Be sure to join me next week. My guest will be Josh Miller from